Hey everybody, I'm Yvonne Williams with Back to Earth Creations, and in this video I'm going to show y'all how I sculpted this fairy house garden. There's not really a house, but you can see it's a full 360 experience complete with cast acrylic waterfalls, seashells, gardens, coral reef, like everything. I'll be getting a lot of like a up close zoomed in footage at the end of the video, so be sure to stick around, but let's get started. To make the base for this wire tree that I sculpted in a video that will be linked down below, as well as quite possibly up on the screen. If it's not up on the screen, hopefully it will be down below, so please check there in the video description. I am going to be making, well, I've made this seashell, but I kind of want to have the tree sitting at the water's edge, and this is going to be like a little seashell pond, kind of, and so I'm going to be building up a little bit of clay over here. I'm going to be casting some resin into this area to make like a little water surface, and this I sculpted from just white Plano Sculpey polymer clay ages ago. It broke whenever I was using this to make as a form to make the cups for my Capricorn costume. These were part of the breastplate, and part of it just broke right off because I didn't put on enough repel. But I'm going to go through, and I really liked the texture and everything that we've got going on here. You can see there's some like lines and things, but it has a little bit of wear and tear on it. So I'd like to touch it up a bit, and I'm going to be going through initially with some of this warm white Folk Art brand artist pigment. All of the tools and materials that I'm using, or at least most of them, will be listed down in the video description below, so be sure to check that out if you are interested in using some of the same products. There are Amazon affiliate links, so your purchases made through those links, even if you don't end up purchasing the same item as what is originally linked to, really benefits our company and our channel. So I really appreciate all of y'all's support through there. And so I'm just coming through with, this is an 1.5 inch chip brush, and I'm going to give ourselves a pretty generous coat. Initially I'm just using the cap as a palette. Pretty generous coat, just as a like a base coat. And then I'm actually going to be popping this into time lapse. So I'm going to paint this, let it dry, and then I'm going to go through and dry brush with, here we have some champagne metallic folk art pigment paint, and then also some oyster pearl, which is a little bit more of a silvery toned, and this is Deco Art brand, but just whatever you like. If you're following along with this, you could totally use just about any color scheme that you might want. But I will get this base coat on, let it dry, and then meet y'all back here in the time lapse for doing the dry brushing. So you can see here, I've gone through and I used a variety of alcohol inks to give us a nice little bit of pattern here on the bottom. It's wetter than I wanted it to be, so the blending solution isn't making the nice patterning as much as I would like, and it also blended out really nicely. I kind of took the excess from inside the shell and put it inside these other shells, but I'm going to set these kind of off to the side a little bit because I'm going to be building this on the platform that it is going to be baked on. You can see I have this heat, like it can be baked just fine, silicone. And then I have our little shell. You can see I really like the way the paint job came out. I thought that looked a little bit more natural than just the plain white. I tried to blend it around onto the inside a bit, but there's going to be enough other stuff going on the inside that we don't really have to worry about that. And now I'm pulling off a chunk, if I can, of some white. This is more of that white Sculpey that we used to do the original shell. And I'm just going to twist off a chunk. I do not recommend putting this stuff through your pasta machine ever. It will gunk it up horribly. It is like, I've got gloves on. It's great for sculpting though, because you can see, I mean, it's not crumbly at all. You can hear how much it's sticking even to just my nitrile gloves. So I'm going to do a bit of a fold and roll because I do like to condition it. Let's just fold and then roll. And I'm going to have this section just be prepped out. You want to make sure that there's no air bubbles or anything like that. I'm just going to have this prepped out as the base, and then I'm going to bring this and I'm going to set it, and I'm going to push from the inside of the shell. I don't want to push down on the edges because I don't want it to break on me. And so you can see how that's kind of, and this is going to give us the base of our little resin fountain. So there's that. And also another thing that I love about this clay is it binds to itself really well, and it paints really well, as you can see. Some more folding roll. And it also drills really nicely for if we decide to add things to it after it's been baked. So now we're going to come around, and I was thinking, starting with the largest, I would do this shell, kind of sitting like that, and then this shell would be up a little bit more from that, and then this shell would be up a little bit more from that. And so I was going to kind of build just like this mound of clay coming off the side. But I am still out of aluminum foil, so I don't really have anything to build that over that I can bake. Normally I would make like a foil core. So I don't really know what else we could use. Styrofoam and stuff, that does not bake well. I wouldn't recommend cardboard either because this is going to be baked for about 45 minutes. So possibly a glass jar might be the thing to put over it. So to kind of just take up some of that space. Yeah, I've got some old jelly jars that I'll be able to use. So I am going to find one of those and continue conditioning the clay, and then I'm going to pop it into some time lapse so that you can see me build the structure up a little bit. So I'll do that and I'll meet you guys right back here. So there's been a change of plans. The jars that I had found that I was like, you know, I could use these, were quite big and they weren't really fitting in. Like, this is also something, like, it would look really cool, you know, like a little stairwell or a ladder or something, maybe climbing up from one to the other. But then I looked right over and I've got like this little bit of hoard of broken things that I'd like to make stuff out of. And I have this old flower pot that clay pots don't tend to last very long in my garden because we usually get a really bad hailstorm every year. And this one did not make it through the hailstorm. So And what's more is it has this excellent hole in it. So I can actually take all the roots of my tree if I wanted, which I think I might go ahead and do this, because I was going to try to have the roots like kind of starfishing out and around a little bit. Which we can still separate those out. So we could just have it sitting on the surface, but I thought it would really make it just nice and simple and easy if I went ahead and just made a little bit of like a carrot root out of our tree, and then just threaded that down and in. And once we get it in, so far, I think that looks great. Come around to the inside, off camera, and give her a good bend that way. And you can see how I actually just bent there at the top. Yeah, and this way she can just sit like that. She's wobbly right now, the tree is, but we'll get her built up around the base with some clay. So actually I'm gonna have to change my camera perspective. This is getting pretty large. But that way we have our tree, and then we can start building our shell fountain up and around, possibly like beep, like this, or maybe we want to have it from the other side. I don't know yet. But I really like that that tucks kind of up and in. It just makes a cool little overhang that we don't even necessarily have to have quite so, you know, it doesn't have to be like that either. We could have it like this. That's kind of neat. It's fun to consider options, I think. I like trying just a ton of different stuff because you never know what you're going to prefer. So I could have that one just sitting there. And what's more is that leaves us like a crazy cool option for having a cave. But no, I think I like this. Gives us a nice little overhang and a little cave down here at the bottom for whenever we start fleshing this out into a complete fairy house, home, gnome home, whatever it's going to end up being. Okay, now it looks like I'm not actually going to be able to use all of them, so I may have multiple. You like a waterfall coming around on each side. Might be kind of fun. Or even have that up under, yeah. Oops. Okay, so now it's going to go into time lapse though. That way, if I'm gonna be piddling around with this, at least it'll be super fast. I'm going to be using some of this translucent liquid Sculpey to make a little bit of a slurry out of sand, and I'm not really going to bother just squeezing it out of the tip. I just need to like a glob to get me where I'm going. So let's just squeeze and smush and try to get... Some of the bottles that I've gotten of this have been very like nice and runny. Some of them, like this one, have been very not nice and runny. So I've actually turned to storing them tip down in my tool rack. Then I'm actually going to be taking some sand that was sent to me by one of my friends here on YouTube. And I'm going to use my spoon to put some of this sand into this liquid polymer clay. And I probably put in way too much. So I'm actually going to dump some of this back in. Yeah, there we go. That's much more reasonable. Seal that up because I know I'm prone to spilling things. This is some really nice, like, fine sand too, so that's pretty cool. I'm just going to be using a wooden toothpick to stir. Here we are. And you can see right now this is way too much sand to clay ratio. Like, I need it a little bit more like a super runny concrete maybe. Super runny. So let's try to get this a little bit more. Just squeeze it in there. There we are. And so you can see now that's actually coming out quite nice, but I'm going to add in just like a few drops, like probably maybe 1/8 of a teaspoon of clay softener. Here, I'll show you the bottle. I bought this bottle probably like 8 years ago. It has really lasted me, but it's great for thinning out your polymer clay into a little bit more of a paint. Excuse me. There we go. And so now let's see if we can't use this. And I'm using a brush that I fully intend to just throw away. Like, I don't think this is something that I'll be able to just keep. I'm going to take this and just kind of paint it onto the clay pot because I want it to look a little bit like a sandcastle. Excuse me. Now I don't know, it's dripping. This is weird. I didn't anticipate it dripping. That's not cool. Okay. So I think what I may end up doing is getting my heat gun and putting some on and then heat setting it. Just kind of on the surface, that way it'll still... Going through and doing a little bit of a stippling effect is working out pretty well. I also, now that I'm thinking about it, probably could have suspended this in a Liquitex heavy body, like gel medium. And then put a hair dryer on that for a minute. And I probably would have done that after baking. Excuse me. And I'm going to want to get in there and clean up all these little bits where just a little too much sand is pooled in one spot. But yeah. Fortunately, it seems to wipe up pretty easily. Oh, no, I wasn't even in frame. Look at that. So you can see I'm just globbing some on. And then kind of just packing it there onto the surface. So yeah, let me go and get that heat gun, and then we'll get started setting that. Now here you can see it's really run quite a bit. I could not find my heat gun. So I'm going to try to tidy up a little bit here. Because I don't want all of this extra bit heat setting. I'm gonna set that there. And now this is just a regular old heat gun, like baseline, nothing fancy. You see I was getting a little bit of burning there on accident, or it's actually not burning as much as drying. So a little bit more of a translucent. Not drying, baking, sorry. I'm just making up words now. There we go. That should spot bake it well enough that we don't have to worry about it dripping as much. And we may even be able to go through and do a little bit of a second coat. So I'm just getting a little bit more here on the brush, dropping it all over everything. That's great. I do not want it, oh no, hiding all of the pretty shells. I don't know, maybe that'll kind of caulk it in a bit. Ooh. Oh yeah, it's just getting everywhere. I did not think this through. Yeah, and actually thinking about it, I think I have a polymer clay that looks an awful lot like sand that I could have just like made all of this stuff out of. But then I wouldn't be having all this fun now with you guys, so. Okay, so before this gets too adventurously runny on us, I'm gonna stiple it a bit just to get it distributed. I'd rather have the stippling marks than brush strokes. So I'm gonna get in here, stipple this a bit, and heat set. gonna see if I can't layer it just a little bit better, like right in there. Could use some more. Excuse me. It looks like I've used up my liquid clay concoction that I had, which I think will be all right. Because what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to fill this section in with more seashells and things like that. Also hot. Keep that in mind. So now I'm going to be putting this into another time lapse for y'all so that we can get some nice progress made without it taking all day. So I'm going through and placing these weird like coral shell things that again were given to me very generously by a friend here on YouTube. And I'm using my nylon jaw pliers to gently but firmly hold them as I then angle them down and place them into the clay there. Like I want these to look kind of like anemones or, you know, just something weird. And this is going to be secured in resin, like, so only like the tops of them are going to be poking out. And hopefully, like, they're going to bubble pretty weird, I'm pretty sure, because they're hollow. So I'm not 100% how that's going to translate into reality. like once the resin's been cast, but I'm poking them in pretty densely. And at least with them being cast into the resin, I'm not going to have to worry about them like falling out or anything like that. So just coming through and picking them and placing and just kind of poking them down and in. I did a little bit of like a stratified polymer clay, almost like if you were making like a dough where you roll it out and flour it and fold it and like a pastry crust. So it would end up being like quite fluffy. Well, so it's got like all these interesting like lines and things that I think we may end up having some cool, like some of the dye and stuff of the resin may end up settling into it. Like I don't know yet. So I really wanted to make a little bit of like a coral critter growth here underneath the overhang. And I really wanted to be able to fit these up like way and up underneath there. And again, we'll kind of have to see how all of these bake. I probably should have tested it before placing so many of them, but I kind of feel like I'm too far into it now, so I may as well keep going. Yeah. Now I want to see if I can use, because these are pretty resilient little things. Yeah. I can get in here with my bent nose pliers and place them, because just the tips of these nylon jaws are kind of bulky. So I want to be able to get in there, press them in, and like kind of place them without having to worry about knocking all the other ones that I've placed around. And so I'm going to throw this into some time lapse and meet y'all back here for the next step. Alright y'all, so this is it before it goes into the oven. I'm going to bake it at 275 for about 45 minutes. I'm going to be checking it every 10 minutes to make sure there's no burning. But this will be my first and final bake other than the, heat setting that liquid clay. I've gone ahead and set the sand in the spots where I'm like knew I wanted some. I think I might add some in right around there, but we'll see. So I will see you guys in about an hour. I have mixed up 6 ounces of art resin. I put just a very little bit of this stream colored alcohol ink on the tip of the stir stick and like blotted it. So I mean the tint, you almost even can't even tell that it's there, but I really didn't want to risk having it be over tinted. But in the parts where the little waterfall's hanging down, I really wanted there to, I mean, be something, you know. So just stirring that a little bit more. Then I'm going to set it aside to let the bubbles come out of it some. I'm not worried about having a perfectly clear cast on this one, because, you know, it's water. There's going to be a little bit of movement to it. I actually want some, I want a little bit of bubbling going on in there. And so I'm going to slip this glove off, and I'm going to come in, and these are German glass glitter shards in ocean toned. I wanted just a little bit of sparkle to come in here through the bottom. Just bringing it around into all the little basins. A little bit more down there. There we go. Something I really like about art resin is it has a 45-minute pot time. And I actually completely forgot to hot glue on all the greenery and everything that we were going to be doing. So let me panic grab all of that real quick, and I will be right back. So I have my heat gun heating, or my glue gun heating up, and I just wanted to come through with some champagne colored paint, but I've got a little bit of alcohol ink left on the brush, so it's actually coming out a really nice blue. So I just want to be careful about not getting it all over the shells and everything. There we go. Just getting that kind of around and over. Using a different brush now, a much stiffer one. There we go. Nothing like a little bit of panic to get everything up and going. That's what I get for working on a project late at night, though. I mean, really. Just getting the paint kind of down in there. And hopefully by the time I get this last coat on, the glue gun will be nice and hot, and we'll be able to start placing resin. I'm only really worried about getting the resin, or the, not the resin, the greenery in and around the, where the resin's going to be poured. Like in the actual stuff. Switch that. Oops. Okay, so here we have some really cool looking, I don't know, could this be like a little layer of like coral stuff, or I'm not really certain. Because really at this point too, I don't even think I necessarily need the hot glue gun. Though we could use the hot glue gun just to keep everything kind of tacked into place. So let me zoom in on what we're doing. Oh, grunty puppy. And I mean just a touch of glue. Mostly because that's all I can squeeze out of the gun right now. And so I'm going to pop this into some time lapse. That way y'all can get a good idea of what all's happening, and then I'll meet y'all right back here. Alrighty guys, so our resin is starting to set up a little bit. We have all the greenery placed that I think we're going to use, and I'm coming through and I'm using, these are called micro beads. They're super pretty, tiny, no hole in them beads, and I'm going to try to use them to emulate bubbles. And these are like a super pale, like aqua blue. Oh, well, there went a whole bunch of them. Okay, well, we'll see how they settle into the resin, hopefully. But yeah, I thought adding some little bubble works would be really nice. I'm going to be adding more after this layer because you can see that this bottom pond here is not quite full enough to have reached the lip over here, and I'd like, you know, a little bit of I don't want a water flowing uphill kind of thing having to happen just so we can have our little waterfall. I feel like I'd rather give it a little bit of dose of realism. I think those did a fantastic job. If I can zoom in. Of bubbling it up a bit. You can see I've still got resin dropping down. Boop, right there. Kind of just oozing over. But we'll see how that keeps going and setting up. So I'll probably be doing a second casting of resin, possibly some UV resin to get a little bit of texture, with maybe some white in it to, you know, give a sense of movement of the water, like, you know, ripples and things moving along. I'm just going to take some little things like these guys and set them in around the top here, around the base of our tree. That way, whenever we go through and do a second casting of resin, there'll be a little bit of dimension of stuff. Give it a minute to, you know, soak down in there. But I really wanted to give this a sense of growth. Like there were things happening here. It's not just a statue, it's something that, you know, is alive, is what I wanted to try to give the feel of. You know, that everything flowing down from the tree. So yeah, if the tree of life imagery isn't apparent in this, then I don't think I did my job. But it's art. It's whatever we make it for ourselves. I'm also really worried about all the water pouring out. Well, resin running out of the top here. So I'll definitely probably end up adding a little bit more to the top in our second cast. And these tweezers have been a big help to me, just being able to kind of grab and dab in a little bit of detail here and there. So we'll let this set up, and then I'll meet you all back here for the next step if we decide to have one. Oh, you know, I'm going to pop the little heads off these flowers and give ourselves some little floating flower heads too. Oops, gosh, where'd you go? There you are. Oop, there we go. Oof, you're killing me, Smalls. Oh, good gravy. There we go. There's that one. I'm gonna take this back around, put another one like right there. That looks great. Okay. So yeah, I will meet you guys back here probably tomorrow morning to see how this is set up. So our resin has set up, and I think it has come together beautifully. I'm going to go through and start a second layer of a little bit more detail. And good on me, I actually had my glue gun heated up this time. But yeah, I'm just going to come on through, place a spot of hot glue, dab some moss into place. I try to clean up the little cobwebby spider web bits from the hot glue gun as I go, because that's going to make a big difference later on in just, you know, how tidy it is without having to do a bunch of work and almost like hunting. There we go. I had some problems with hot glue leaking. Or not hot glue, but the resin leaking through this area. So now I'm going to kind of build that up a little bit. I don't know if you can see, sorry. But I'm just kind of raising this up as the hot glue dries. I'm getting some little lines and stuff into it. Using just this porcupine quill actually to kind of train and texture it down a little maybe. You can also always just come through and scrape some of it up if it's not being the way that you want it to. But yeah, I just wanted just enough to make almost like a little bit of a dam to hold that in. There we go. And now I have all of these lily pads that I had sculpted from polymer clay. And they have been baked. And some of them, like that, would look silly. I think that's just too big. But I can totally place it maybe over here. And so I'm going to do just a little teeny tiny, if I can manage it, spot of hot glue just to keep this from floating away on me whenever we do the second layer of resin. And this one I'm actually just going to do the hot glue onto the back of the lily pad itself. Smoosh smoosh. And I really wanted something just like crazy vibrant, like super fantasy world, like Journey to the Center of the Earth, like just strange, otherworldly. And so that's why I didn't really go with a more natural theme, I think. And so I'm just gluing and placing and gluing. Now also, here I have, these are some little cattails that were made by a friend of mine. They are vintage bronze parawire. It looks like an either 24 or 26 gauge, and then like a chocolate brown done to make it look like a little cattail. But they kind of pull out of the base pretty, you have to tug a bit, but you can get it. And so to use these, I'm going to actually be coming around, and I have my round nose pliers, and I'm going to make a little bit of a spiral, and then I'm going to grab it and I'm going to bend a 90-degree angle. And this is going to give me a base, oops, that I can then do just a little spot of hot glue. And then I'm going to be using this ball tip tool, and I can set that and then tap down that hot glue. That hot glue really is only there to stabilize it until the resin is poured. But see how that gives it like such a cool little effect. And so again, I'm going to grab it, make a little bit of a spiral, grab it, and bend at a 90-degree angle. Just like that. And then do a little glob. Ah, super stringy little glob. There we go. And I think it's a good idea too to get them to be like different heights and maybe leaning in different directions, or just add some variation to it. You don't want a bunch of, or I don't know, you might want whatever you want, but I'm not really looking for formal landscaping. I want it to look like things are just wildly and naturally growing in this environment. Weird traffic noises. And so I'm going to put this into a little bit of a time lapse and continue adding in some detail maybe. Actually, I'm not going to put it into a time lapse just yet, because I do have a little bit more detail that I'd like to add. After this last cattail. There we go. Now, I do wish this hot glue dried a little clearer. You can usually tell by the way that your hot glue looks in stick form is how it's going to look whenever it comes out. So that was just something I should have paid closer attention to. I thought it would be fine, and really I guess it's okay. You know, the water has a little bit of movement to it, gives it a little bit of, you know, the bubbles make it look whiter. Kind of like whitewater rapids kind of stuff. I'm just going to put a couple of little lily pads down here. There we are. And I think that makes it look, I mean, just all the more, if this didn't already have just layers and layers and layers of detail in it, it certainly does now. And now we also have here, this is from this pack. This was also sent to me. It is colorful carving pattern powder, intended for fingernails, but I didn't know how it would bake, so I didn't want to put it, you know, into the polymer clay at all, like mix it in with the sand or anything, but I thought that this stuff might look kind of cool, added in as like bubbles down at the base of the waterfalls. So I'm going to see if I can't pick up just a little sprinkle of them. Might be better applied with a paintbrush. Yeah, these make really cool looking, like a little bit of like froth. So I think what I might do is mix this in with some UV resin and make little like water textures on the surface. So that's a really cool thing to have. So yeah, I'm going to go and mix up some resin, no color additives this time, and then I'll meet you guys back here for the next step. Hey everybody, thanks so much for hanging out with me for this tutorial. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please leave them down below. If you would like to tag me on Instagram or share pictures of what you make on Facebook, the links to my social media will be down below as well. Now, this project is actually my giveaway prize to all of my patrons for June 2018. I try to do a fairy house like this every month. I do other giveaways throughout the month as well, including hand-painted dragon eyes, original pieces of art, and like leatherworking kits and other types of like craft crates and things. So if you'd like to participate in that, it starts at just $1 on my Patreon. If you pledge $1, you get your name into the hat once. If you pledge $5, you get your name into the hat 5 times. And then if you pledge $10 or more, you still get 5 entries into all of my giveaways, but you also get digital download content. If you pledge $20 or more, you get a like craft crate mailed to you, sorry, words are hard, every month, of all sorts of different goodies, and you can kind of pick the tier, but there's a lot of stuff to choose from over there, so I do recommend at least going and checking it out. We also have a lot of behind the scenes content and, polls and different things that, ways that you can participate without even being a pledger at all. Like, I want to be able to give back as much as I can to everybody because y'all have been so supportive and so encouraging and so inspiring too. Like, a lot of the shells and different components that I used in this sculpture were gifted to me from you guys. So thank you so much for that. But, yeah, all the links to all the good stuff are down below in the video description. So until next time, I'll see y'all around, and happy crafting. Bye.